Panel. This is a great subject to be talking about because I've had a lot of folks, that are just like, including myself. I was at a Future of Motorsports panel at SEMA years ago, and I was asked about EV and hybrid racing. Isn't that going to be the big thing, that big growth thing? And I said, well, sometimes us race fans just want to hear noise. They want to hear the belching, but EV racing hybrids, that's where the manufacturer's money is going. And that's where we're going to see a lot of growth in this industry. And we've got a great panel up here today. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. First, Eric.
Good morning. My name is Eric Hoon. I am the safety director for the William States Lee College of Engineering at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. I am also a firefighter at my home fire department and a firefighter for Charlotte Motor Speedway. And I'm also currently conducting some of my own research on lithium-ion battery fire safety. And I mean, I kind of get to blow things up in the name of science, and that's a lot of fun.
And that's the big key to this panel is safety today. Don, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, glad to be here. My name is Don Taylor, and among other things, I am the director of the Stand 21 Safety Foundation. And what we do is go around with experts like Dr. Terry Trammell, Dr. Steve Olvey, Jim Downing, who invented the co-inventor of the Hans. And we talk to racers and try to give them some practical advice beyond what it says in the rule book. So we do that at Long Beach, and we'll do it with SCORE, with the SCTA. We'll do it here at PRI. And my most recent interest, though, has been in electric vehicle racing safety. And so with that interest, I connected with Eric to my left, happily, and together we put together a program in Charlotte in October. We had about 100 people. So it was a great turnout of tracks and sanctioning body people. We'll talk more about that if you want. But I just want to say that we've talked about, the last panel, advertising overload. So things like that shouldn't happen. There shouldn't be overload of advertising. And, pardon me. Consider this a pop-up ad for our program on Friday here at PRI, where we will talk more about EV safety, among other things.
So, Don, if you're going to advertise it, I'm going to do this. For 35 years, Thunderhill Raceway Park, president and CEO, got to build it from grass. It was a great adventure. Lots of exciting things happened, especially getting a permit in the state of California to build a racetrack. That was a miracle. It's a great story. Happy to tell it to you. My name's David Vodden, and as I said, I'm the outgoing president and CEO of Thunderhill Raceway Park. My replacement is sitting right there. His name is Matthew Busby. I want you to meet him today and throughout the PRI show, please. He's a dynamic and exciting young man. He's going to take Thunderhill to new places. I wrote all this down, so I don't know how much time we have. So I'm the Area 9 Director for the SCCA National Board, Vice Mayor of the City of Willows, California, which is where the racetrack happens to be. Guess that works out pretty good. Executive Board Member of the NASCAR West Coast Hall of Fame, and President of Friends of Thunderhill Foundation. So back in the day, I was the GM of Baylands Raceway Park in Fremont, California. My passion and beginning all started with circle tracks like the Deary family, and particularly favored dirt. Officer, Director, Promoter, CRA, NARC, USA, and SCCA, Rotarian, President and Director, Butte College Board of Trustees, track builder, consultant to what I call motorsports success, and best of all, I'm a race car driver. Just ask me, sprint cars, midgets, stock cars, everything that ever rode on a road course. I'm a whore when it comes to driving, racing. And we have a lot of electric vehicle activity at Thunderhill Park, and that's why I'm here, not for any of this.
And before we jump into the questions, I want to thank David for always being a staunch supporter of RTBC. When I look out into this audience and I see guys like Herb over there and Tom Deary here, and these lifers that have been with us from the very first show, like David, that's the reason we are still here. So thank you to all that continue to support this, including you. All right, Eric. What are some of the biggest challenges or concerns for a track owner who is trying to make their track more EV friendly?
Well, I would say that the first step towards being EV friendly is you're going to have to look at your infrastructure. You know, the event that Don mentioned that we had at Charlotte Motor Speedway this past fall, we had some guests come in and they brought their personal EVs, their personal Teslas. They were asking about, well, can I charge it there? As it turns out, no, you cannot. So step number one would probably be, if you want to be inviting to EVs, is you should probably give them some place to charge. That may not be a small feat, depending on if you're doing level 2, level 3 charging. That could be quite the electrical demand on your facility to do it properly. So that infrastructure would certainly be one place you need to look at. The second is knowledge of the hazard, and you know that this is where it really comes into my wheelhouse. EVs, they are missing quite a lot of components that we're all used to in traditional cars and traditional race cars. You know, we know how regular cars can catch fire when you pop a fuel line or get an oil leak or get brake fluid on hot brakes. We see those fires. We're familiar with those fires. We know how to work with those fires. EVs bring a new type of hazard onto our tracks that you need to have a decent working knowledge of what's going on with these battery systems and the motors and the controllers and this and that and this that. To be prepared. It does take some different safety equipment from a response standpoint than what you are probably okay with using for traditional cars. And you know, earlier, you know, in the last session we talked about information overload. Well, that currently exists in the fire service as well. If you try to Google EV safety or battery safety or something like that, there is a huge information overload on this is what you should do, this is what you should do. Companies saying, well, we have a lithium-ion battery fire extinguisher. Well, we have a lithium-ion battery fire extinguisher. And some of it has merit, but without a really healthy knowledge of how all that works, it's really tough to decipher through all that.
David, talk about some of the challenges that you might have encountered as you tried to go more EV friendly and the costs involved.
Well, we're very excited about the EV market. We're very aware that this is a change, a transition. We've been through it before, all of us, that it's inevitable. It's a reality. There will be electric vehicles on your courses, and we embraced it early on. We did a lot of research on fighting a thermal runaway fire or an electric battery originated fire. We were told that there was a possibility of being electrocuted. We have found all of those factors not to be significant, and even nearly the level of a gasoline powered vehicle. They're absolutely less. We believe that we've studied and seen in people who are building cars, whether they're a modified Tesla or an S2 or any number of spec racers. Charlie Greenhouse is somewhat famous across the country for his electric car. He ran our 25-hour endurance auto race twice and finished, didn't win. And so we just think we're smart people. EV is coming. It's actually here. And if you embrace it and engage with it, you're going to benefit from it. And people are going to race it. If it rolls, electric vehicles roll. We heard and studied through the road racing conference that's tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the TOPS room. All the road racing tracks will be together, and one of the subjects we talk about is electric vehicle issues. We heard that some tracks absolutely banned electric vehicles. I can't even imagine doing that. Anyway, so, but we didn't. We have a lot of them. We have numbers of how much revenue they've generated for us in so many capacities, $1.4 million in the last year from EV activity at Thunderhill Raceway Park. And I don't know if that's important in your business, But and it's getting more, and again, it will be more. We put in our own chargers, which were very expensive. They had a credit card application, and that was thrilling not. But we have Tesla on site, and Tesla does a lot of work there. That's part of how we get to the 1.4. And guess who put in the 18 chargers that we have at Thunder Hill Raceway Park? Not us, Tesla. So we were talking to the gentleman in the back about the idea of embracing the corporate community of EVs and getting them to create the infrastructure for you because they need it and it's good for them. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we're just thrilled about the EV market, the potential. They're fast, they're torquey, they're fun to drive, they're an awesome drift car, and we look forward to more.
Don, would you like to talk a little bit more about the safety aspect?
Yes, let's talk a little bit about the dangers. David, we agree with you that the two things that we see coming up are the fear of getting zapped, if a car crashes or something, and should I touch it, not touch it? And of course, the lithium-ion battery fire, and Eric can explain that more. Those are two factors, and then you say, who is at risk? Turns out not the driver so much. We had people from IMSA, we had people from Williams who do the Formula E program, and those drivers, they've been doing this for 10 years now, Formula E. The drivers just wear normal equipment. There's no special suit that's grounded or super high temperature resistant for battery fires, nothing like that. The people who are concerned and in danger now are the track workers, the responders, who again, looking for the fires, looking for what they do. And then the fire, yes, it's high temperature and how do you get rid of it? And we talk about that and towing the car away and putting water on it. And that's details, that's kind of the science of it. But yes, it doesn't happen that often, but we're trying to understand better so that for the tracks, for people we talk to, we can say, here's a few simple tips, here are the facts on just about how dangerous these things are. And one thing I would add is that with the fires, okay, we'll let that fire burn out, but the fire is also giving off these noxious fumes now, such that people who approach them are looking to wear respirators. So there may be a spec coming down the road through NHRA or other sanctioning bodies as they create rules and standards with SFI. But that's all kind of being in the formative stage at this point.
Eric, it would seem to me with these dangers that are unique to EVs that means another level of training for your safety crews.
Yeah, and I mean, to his point, that it is a lot less likely to happen. Yeah, I do want to make that clear. I do want to reinforce that it is a lot less likely to happen because EVs are a lot less complicated. They have a lot less moving parts. There are fewer things to fail. But the things that could fail are going to fail in a different way that most people don't have the knowledge of how to handle it. And so that's where, and I haven't had an opportunity to really pick your brain ahead of time, but the training, I'm sure you've gotten a lot of support from Tesla. But yes, a track that's going to embrace EVs, whoever's responsible for track operations, if you have your own track services people, whatever that looks like, there is going to be some familiarization that needs to happen, because I don't know, have you had an on-track thermal runaway or battery fire or anything?
Not a one.
Okay, so it hasn't happened on track. To my knowledge, we've never seen an EV go into thermal runaway or have a battery fire on track during an event. Well, I take that back. I think there have been maybe some dragsters. But for a circuit event, I don't think it's happened. We have seen paddock fires during charging especially. Even the fire service as a whole, professional firefighting, a lot of the EV fires that we deal with are during charging. All that to say, yes, there is some familiarization that needs to happen for track services workers, for operations managers, whoever is setting up these events, to understand that these are the unique hazards specific to EVs and hybrids that require a different approach than traditional gasoline or internal combustion cars.
David, you talked about $1.4 million on the bottom line. That certainly got all of our attention. How tough was it to build that interest in EVs and hybrids without your other parts of the business? I mean, how did they all go together?
Well, we had Stanford University at Thunder Hill Park, the PhD program for automotive engineering, and Stanford and the folks there that we became friends with connected us with these folks. There were probably some other avenues, but primarily Stanford reached out. We got Tesla, we got Lucid, we got Zoox, we got all of these companies, Toyota, and they talk amongst each other, and they needed a venue, and so we ended up kind of being their venue. So it happened sort of automatically or on its own course, and they're very happy, and we're very happy to have them. And I don't know, I've never talked to them, did you try somewhere else and they tell you to go pound sand? And I don't think that's happened. We got a Toyota crate from Michigan. This big boxcar crate shows up with doors and locks on it, and it's now at Thunder Hill Park. I have no idea what's in it, but it glows at night. No, that's not true. But it's research, and see, we're in front of R&D development, creative development. We know the batteries are going to change. The lithium fires, the thermal runaway, all of that's going to be changed as the technology evolves. So again, it was sort of a process that evolved over time, and Thunder Hill's reputation is embracing and helping and enabling things to happen, and we do that for them, and we like them all. They're fun people, and some of the PhD graduates from the Stanford University program now work for Lucid or Tesla or Zoox, and so they're bringing them there. So it's the same way you build an audience. Word of mouth, results, they tell, they promote for you, and so we're very blessed. I do want to speak to one thing, though. So when we started in this, and the question came up here, I believe, oh my gosh, these cars are going to burn your track up. They're so hot when they burn, they'll melt the asphalt and all these things. So we researched this. We looked at the fire departments in your community, the highway patrols. They have to know how to fight a battery fire, a thermal fire. And so they do. And so they have videos of burning Teslas and burning, I shouldn't favor Tesla, burning other electric vehicles. And they talk about how it is. And I was told that the fumes that come off of a fire are not toxic, so I might have to talk to you about that. And then the electrical wiring in a Tesla is all one color. You can't touch a hot wire or a Tesla, and it's all contained. So you can't reach in and shock yourself because you got the hot wire. And it takes a long time. A gasoline fire is a bomb. An electric fire is a process. So we came up with a thing where if there is an electric fire, number one, we extract the driver. We make sure the driver is okay and bring them to safety. The next thing we do is we get a forklift. Now this is an exaggeration for effect. We run it through the car, we pick it up, and it's on fire, and we drop it, we get it off the asphalt. Then if there is a third move, we drop it into a recessed area and fill it up with water, about a foot or two, and leave it there and give them 48 hours to get it out of there. And oh, by the way, if it burns up on the back of the tow truck, there have been lots of stories about that. Can I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Now, David.
Yes, sir.
You and I usually agree about things.
Okay.
But what about people out here, tracks out here that don't have forklifts and Stanford PhDs and guys from Tesla and Tesla putting in stations and Toyota delivering boxes?
That's why we're here.
Well, exactly. And so the normal track, and I was involved in, my wife and I had an interest in the small track. It's a tough business, and you got to keep an eye on just what you're doing today, and looking to the future is sometimes hard to do, and so we're concerned. I guess we agree on that. Eric and I and you agree that what can we bring to the smaller tracks as far as some simple things that here's the facts, here's how dangerous it is or isn't, and what you can do with just a few people on your safety staff.
Eric,
That's our objective.
Sorry about that. Eric, it seems to me that we're seeing technology changing so fast. nowadays in everything, and I have a feeling that's going to be the case with EVs as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The EVs of a year from now, 2 years from now, will have different technology, different battery technology. Like you said, my faculty at Charlotte are part of the electrochemical machine developing more safer, more thermally stable battery materials so that one of these days we can stop talking about thermal runaway. We're not there yet, but that's kind of the goal. Another technology that isn't necessarily new, but it's kind of another form of electric vehicle is, at some point we're probably going to have to start talking about hydrogen fuel cell too, because that's becoming another popular way of generating electricity. So you're going to see these battery hybrid cars that have batteries but also have hydrogen fuel cells in them as well. Maybe that'll be next year's RTBC topic, because I got to get read up on that one myself. I know some people at Honda and Toyota, and that's coming. But to your point about you can't really get zapped. Yeah, like I mentioned, I think we were talking about the Swiss cheese model that has to exist for that to be a hazard. Yeah, it's happened once. I learned this when we had our conference in Charlotte from the engineer from Williams. The reason you look at Formula E, Formula One, IMSA, they have all these battery status lights and all this telemetry is in the early days of the KER system in Formula One, they electrocuted a mechanic once. And even then, the system was in such its infancy that they didn't have the telemetry. So I don't think they're entirely sure what happened. But there was a BMW mechanic that was electrocuted in those early days of the F1 hybrid system. And I think that probably spawned a lot of the high voltage safety stuff that you see from the FIA and IMSA now. And I would imagine I don't see that same focus on thermal runaway, and I have to imagine it's probably because we just haven't seen it yet. Heaven forbid we burn up a car on track, and people's perceptions will probably change. But it's just like anything with cars, as the technology changes, as new modes of powering cars comes along, quickly on their heels are going to be people racing those cars. So we do need to keep an eye on what's new and great on the showroom, what type of technology are all the manufacturers bragging about. It's all alternative fuels. Gasoline isn't going anywhere, diesel isn't going anywhere. But as time goes on, we're going to see more and more alternative fuels, more and more ways of generating electricity from different power from different means. Electricity is definitely going to grow, things like hydrogen fuel cell, that's knocking on our door. So we just need to keep our eyes open.
You might explain a thermal runaway. I bet there's people here that don't know what thermal runaway is. We keep using it. And then the other thing is the state of California has banned gasoline-powered engines. I'm not sure if it's 2030, but it's coming. So we got the government to deal with. Thermal runaway.
Okay, real quick. Thermal runaway. So you've probably heard about problems of battery fires. Batteries can certainly get hot enough to cause things to catch fire. And that's really what we're talking about. Thermal runaway is a chemical reaction that happens inside the battery where the batteries will get too hot, essentially. Batteries, as they charge and discharge, they generate a little bit of heat. And naturally, they can dissipate the heat that they make, and it's not a problem. When it becomes a problem is they get too hot that they can't dissipate the heat. Either they're being heated from the outside. Say you have an electric hybrid car and for whatever reason they've got a battery close to the exhaust. Well, that's a bad design. A car wouldn't be built that way, but who knows what they're doing, and Joe Schmo's doing in his...
Exhaust for what?
Well, that's it. If
batteries.
it's a hybrid, if it's like a gas hybrid engine, like they, but if these batteries get too hot, there are certain materials inside the battery that'll start to break down, and when they break down, they release heat. But then when they break down, they also start reacting with other materials in the battery, and then those chemical reactions also create more heat. So you have this runaway cycle of these breakdown reactions that are creating heat, and then as they create heat, they create gases inside the battery. So you get heat, pressure, gases, heat, pressure, gases, to the point that something's going to fail. And either the battery's going to get hot enough that it's going to light the stuff around it on fire, or the pressure inside the battery is going to get so great that the battery casing is going to fail. And for all intents and purposes, let's call it an explosion. And these little battery cells are going to explode. And when they do so, they explode at many, many, many thousands of degrees Celsius because of how much heat was generated in that runaway reaction. Anything that gets exposed to that reaction is going to then be on fire. So it's the failure of the battery itself that is going to set the things around it on fire. Yes, when a battery fails, you will see fire coming out of it. That's because you've got things like hydrogen and other flammable gases that were generated in that runaway reaction. That when the battery explodes, those gases now have air, and they're thousands of degrees, so they just ignite. You're seeing hot gases come in contact with air and ignite, and then now everything around it is now also on fire. So that is the battery fire. Thermal runaway itself is not a fire. There is not a fire happening inside that little battery. It is a very hot, very extreme chemical reaction. The fire is everything around the battery now being on fire.
Don, in the racing world, we in the old days were really bad when it came to safety. But a catastrophic incident, we learned and we got smarter. It seems to me with EVs, we're almost a little bit ahead of the game than we were in the old days.
Yeah, let me talk about the good old days for a second here. You mentioned Herb Fischel, who's back there. I worked for Herb at GM Racing some decades ago now, but Herb is the one who initiated the General Motors safety program and brought in Dr. Terry Trammell and John Melvin and all these other people.
Wow.
And that created my interest and a bunch of other people who worked for Herb. Tom Gideon, who went on to work for NASCAR. I think he might have been here as well. Anyway, thank you, Herb. See what you've started. And now we're at a point where a lot of these people are retiring. And now with a new challenge, we have a need for new faces. And I think that's where Eric fits in and some other people who are picking up the challenge with the new technologies and seeing the interest in safety go forward. So.
First of all, Eric, you did an amazing job explaining that. For a moment, if I just shut my eyes, I felt like I was back in college. I said, anyone get that feeling? Like, ooh, I need a diagram or something next. But
I have them if you are interested.
Hey, bring it on. I'm a visual person. That's probably why I love racing and everything about it, hands-on and visual. But if I'm putting myself in a track owner's shoes, and you can tell me if I'm off, because what I'm picking up is David, you have a benefit and almost, it's kind of a double-edged sword being in California, right?
Yeah.
Benefit of having Tesla's headquarters there, but if I'm in other people's shoes, it's like, okay, I don't have Tesla in my backyard. Creative ways where my head went was maybe I can link up with any college or university, right? Maybe it's not Tesla, so maybe that's a good place to start, right? Is a college and university, R&D, any company that may be near you that has R&D around, any type of battery that could be in a car, motorcycle, vehicle. But I guess where I'm going with this, that's where my business brain went. But where do I start? If I could start one place, because some of those charging stations, if I were to pay out of pocket $36,000 for one unit, that's not feasible especially to have multiple, if you have multiple cars racing, the amount that you would need. So where would you recommend starting if you don't have Tesla in your backyard?
Is this his question or me?
I would say any of you. would be?
Well, we spent $100,000 putting in a gasoline station. So the reality of the cost of creating chargers is probably relevant only to the demand that you can serve and recapture your money. But I mean, truly, there are grants, there are programs to put charging systems up and down the highways and within communities. So I would first of all look into the governmental and or company-driven grants and funding that they want. It's in their best interest for chargers. That'd be one. You certainly can pay to put them in. I mean, you put a number out there, and I know the first two we put in, which were like the slowest chargers in the world apparently, cost about 20, 30 grand. So I would look for the grants and the government agencies and the folks that are trying to charge up the highways so people will come to their communities and drive up and down safely on the highways. That'd be my first recommendation.
Yeah, and along the lines of grants, if you have engineering or STEM universities in your area as well, see if they're doing any research in this area, because higher education unlocks a world of additional grant funding as well, depending on their area of study, what their faculty, what their students, what their PhDs are doing. It's not outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, at Charlotte, we have many local and private and even other government entities that we work with where they have infrastructure that we need to do our research. So we create these symbiotic relationships where we can write them into our grants for certain things that we're doing, so that we can take advantage of their facility. They can use us for some of this, experimental technology, whatever it is we want to do at their facility. That could be another avenue. I mean, I might be sticking my neck out there on behalf of higher education, but I mean, we're doing dozens of grant proposals a month to various agencies, and I know we're not the only university working in this space.
Yeah, continuing on the college point, engineers today, engineering students, and I see a question there a little bit later. Today, the students who are interested in automotive are not learning about carburetors and Pinto fuel tanks. No, they are heavily into the sustainable energy, electric vehicles, the battery technology, and so forth. So if you did have a college in the area that has some engineers looking at those particular things, that would be very helpful. And also at universities, I think you're familiar with the Formula SAE competition? Yeah. Is that a yes? Okay. In which the engineering students build a car to compete with other universities. They are switching over now, more and more are building electric vehicles, electric little race cars, open wheel cars. And so that would be a place to contact and see if you could, maybe they could use your track for some testing of their car and you could learn something from them.
We do SAE all the time. Happy to do it, and they're wonderful young kids, and they build weird cars.
Great advice indeed. We have a question out in the audience here. Please introduce yourself, where you're from, all that good stuff.
It's Tracy with the Ridge Motorsports Park again. I think something to maybe potentially bring up as well is, depending if you're in a metropolitan area or a rural area, is doing a little bit of legwork before you pursue your grants and everything, because we've ran into issues of making sure there's even enough on the power grid, the local power grids, to support these stations. And that's been a major key to even trying to build out that infrastructure. So definitely I would just try to bring that up as well instead of jumping right into the mix, because Washington State, there's over $68 million in grants for EV stations and stuff. But if you can't support it, you're locked down until they open up those substations.
Regarding power to charge the EVs, our friends at Toyota TRD have developed hydrogen-powered, fuel cell that they use in the Mirage car. They have a truck now that provides electricity via the fuel cell for events like concerts and so forth, and for races. And I was talking to them, and they said, like, you go to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, the local grid couldn't handle an electric vehicle charging's requirements, but their portable unit could do that. So you have buddies at Toyota as well, so maybe between us we could give some assistance to that.
Okay.
Were any infrastructure upgrades required before Tesla was able to put the chargers in?
Yes, sir. We're on the end of a PG&E line in California, and yeah, we ran right into that. We don't have enough coming down the line, but it's been upgraded, in the process of being upgraded. So, yep, that's a good point you made, Ridge. So, you do need to have the power to use it.
Herb Fischel, sustainability is essential for the automotive industry, and it's driven by regulation. What are the key drivers for EV racing, and what role does the fan play?
Well, we have in San Francisco region SCCA, we have a class for electric cars, vehicles, and we have these incredible racers, car builders, and our personalities from even back in the day who want to design and develop their own rigs. So regulation outside of the jurisdiction or the sanctioning body, I don't see anything along those lines. The sanctioning bodies, SCCA has an EVAC committee or an electric vehicle subgroup that's working on rules and thinking about processing and making the platform safe and also equitable amongst classes or A class. So that's all going on as we speak. And you know, the cars are strong and solid and they're easy. I've got a fellow in San Francisco that's building a brand new one and he's all excited. And so I think that the sanctioning bodies, I think SCCA will lead the way perhaps in developing the rules and regulations. And I think we'll get there and we'll probably trip and fall and do all those things that we've done all the time when we develop new technologies and new ways to go fast and beat each other. Did that answer it? Okay, so how many of you have heard, I miss the noise? So that's a personal thing. Our kids will not miss the noise. The senior fan, the guy and gal who really wants the roar of the V8 motor and the long offy tailpipe, I'm sorry, we don't have long offy tailpipes anymore, but we have big pounding V8 motors. I think it'll just change, Herb. I think it will just evolve and people will go, back in the day, they used to sound like this. And will the fan embrace it if the racing's good? Is the Formula E well attended? I'm not up to speed on Formula E, but I think if there's good racing, changes for the lead and personalities involved, I don't think it'll make any difference at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I spend way too much time on YouTube, and I'm seeing a lot of automotive car personalities. You know, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm seeing a lot of high traffic videos that deal with electric conversions, electric racing. A lot of it is just, you know, clickbaity titles like, holy cow, this thing, you know, it threw my hat off my head, and because it accelerates, it has so much torque. I think I'm gonna state an opinion here, and you know, I don't think I'm too far off base though, but I think there is a generation, a social media generation that is going to see these clickbait titles and just be blown away by the sheer performance of some of these cars. And I think we're going to see an audience that's going to be attracted to racing because they see influencers and clickbait titles and just be wowed by the reactions of the people that drive the cars and what these cars can do on track with just unlimited amounts of torque and the shows that they can put on that way.
I think that also, Herb, talking about fans, I still have the notion that the young people today who are playing with RC cars, for example, or RC airplanes, they are already dealing with lithium-ion batteries, controllers, and motors and trying to hop them up. And this is just a full-size version of that. And even with the Lego mindset, you know, you're dealing with electric motors. And so I think that interest will continue as they grow older, and they'll be looking into that. And that brings up, you know, we're talking about how different these vehicles can be. And a starting point, The car like the Tesla or other production EVs are fairly safe, and like you say, everything's labeled and there's controls, and if it's overheating, it knows to shut itself down or back off some. But when you get to somebody who says, I'm going to take that Tesla and I'm going to go around those factory safety controls, I'm going to make this thing really sing, really perform, then you've got a problem. And that's the problem that inspectors have at tracks. How do I look at this thing? We have interest from the SCTA, the Southern California Timing Association, folks who do Bonneville and El Mirage. They're adding new electric classes. And every car you see that goes to Bonneville or any salt flat and dry lake typically is a home built or modified so severely that you don't know where it came from. And so they're facing that challenge. They've been talking to us about how do their inspectors look at these things and say, yeah, that's safe or not safe. What do I do here? So again, the starting point would be a production car where things are pretty much in place. I mentioned, Chris, there you are. I talked to Chris just in the hallway earlier. Give him a microphone. He has a series going, and he can tell us about the steps that they've gone through.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we launched a series last year called the Model 3 Challenge. So we ran it at 5 events. So that's a Tesla-specific spec series and we worked with this group, Mountain Pass Performance, which builds suspension components and other types of components for Teslas. So we had 16 cars in class at Laguna Seca this year. So there is a ton of interest. And yeah, from a spectator perspective, every time the Teslas went out, I was like, what happened on the track? Because you don't hear anything. So I think there's like a safety issue. But like the racing itself is very exciting, right? So the cars are exciting, and the dynamicism, especially in-car video and things of that nature. But I think it's just a matter of time in regards to that, like what we know as high speed and motorsports and the sound and that thing that's going to kind of fade away, right? Like you mentioned the younger generation, but like, so we're seeing like a ton of interest around that just because it exists, right? We like crafted it, we put it together, and now that it's out there, we're getting a lot of people that are like inquiring about it. And as EVs become more people's dailies, and the automotive enthusiasm just kind of moves in that direction, it's snowballing. So I think it's just kind of a field of dreams scenario in a lot of cases. It's like build something, put it out there, structure it, and you'll start to see that gravity.
I mean, could you imagine attending a race and actually being able to have a conversation with the person next to you in the stands?
Be a lot more female attendance too, because most of the gals are not impressed with their ears buzzing.
Hello. Hi, I'm Zach Schnetta, the manager of the Ginger Man Raceway. And we have a Tesla charging station, but it's really old and it's really slow. And we need a upgrade, get an update. So I guess my question is, what are the first steps? There's a Tesla company or a building, I think in Grand Rapids. I think it's like an hour from us. Do I call them? Do I call an electrician? Or like what? And if I get an upgrade, do I get a Tesla supercharger, and is that compatible with all the different types of cars? Because we have races, but I have like corporate groups that come over that have been asking me questions about hooking up their electric vehicles, like Ford or Chrysler. And so whatever I get, what's the best thing to get that's compatible with all the different types of cars?
Well, even I think Tesla has just went away from their proprietary connector. So everything now is this SAE J1772. So moving forward, I don't think you need. I think like generic third-party chargers will work for all cars moving forward as long as they have that SAE J1772 interface. So SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, J1772 is kind of the I don't know if it's the global standard, but certainly in North America, it's the standard for EV charging connections. And then without knowing if your charger's already a level 1, level 2, level 3, I don't know, but you could probably talk to an electrical contractor, start making phone calls with electricians and electrical contractors. I would think that anybody that has experience doing charger installations for home or business use would probably be able to guide you in the right direction.
I agree. I mean, you got a little chuckle when you said call an electrician, but that's really not a bad idea. Whatever that generation of charger was, that becomes a critical piece, because it might not be that you can just juice it up. You might truly have to take it out and put in modern day rapid charging mechanisms.
Final question right over here.
Why not? But I think the electrician's probably the first step. Really.
Companies will put these chargers in, like Blink or Indigo Energy. They'll put them in. They'll put the infrastructure in. If you partner with the power company, we put in 10 level 3 superchargers and 8 level 2s. The power company paid for the transformer and the infrastructure. Autel Energy, we call the CEO, they paid for the DC superchargers, and Indigo funded all the infrastructure that connected everything. It cost us $10,000 for that concrete.
Go see him.
Final question right down here.
Hi, I'm Jennifer with Utah Motorsports Campus. I actually have a few questions, but if we don't have enough time, I'll start with this one. Do you have a procedure in place to handle the public perception following an EV fire?
No different than the current one. We handle all public and relations issues, community relations issues, and so on and so forth. And our basic mantra is the less information, the better.
Right. We are based in kind of a rural area, and since we've become China-owned, we're not their favorite. So we are kind of worried about when that happens, how to handle the community, the local community's perception.
And this is a specialty of mine. First and foremost, spend time in that community, not as the track person, but as a citizen of the community.
Yes.
In the Rotary Club, in the chamber, go to the city council meetings or the board of supervisors. Become an asset to them. So when you go to them with an issue, they're talking to you who they know instead of the track.
Right.
Yeah, and as we've said, a lot previously, the chances of it happening are very, very low, but it will probably happen at somebody's track one of these days. I mean, it is cars on a track. It's going to happen to somebody at somebody's track one of these days. I mean, gasoline fires happen all the time. On Friday, here we go, another pop-up ad. I'm going to be talking with a race car driver at the Stand 21 safety seminar who's had the unfortunate experience of being in a car on fire. So, number one, we really want to make sure people don't get hurt. That's first and foremost, because if someone's hurt in a gasoline car, it's a bad thing. If someone's hurt in an electric car, it's a bad thing. I know there's some public perception things, and because I don't think we've seen it, I don't think we know how that narrative would be skewed. But I think it is important to remember that this is rare, even out on the street. I mean, the number of gasoline car fires that we have on the side of the highway on a day-to-day basis it's in the Charlotte metro area, it's, a good handful every day. Charlotte Fire Department has never had to deal with an EV fire on any of its roadways. There's been a couple in some outlying areas, but I'm good friends with some of the people on Charlotte Fire's hazmat team, and it hasn't happened in the Charlotte metro area. So will it happen? Yeah, it'll happen one of these days, and those guys are well prepared for it. But it's rare. It really is, and I think that's the narrative that people need to be reminded about, because we hear about it in the news, because New York is dealing with an epidemic of apartment fires fueled by like electric scooters that weren't charged properly and stuff like that. So there is definitely a narrative out there right now, and if someone sees an electric vehicle fire on a racetrack, they're going to oh, see, we told you these things are dangerous. So it's like, no, like fires happen. It's racing. I mean, not to downplay it. We need to be safe, but I mean, car fires happen. EV fires are rare if you look at the big picture.
Don, final thought?
Yeah, final thought. You said, Dennis, looks like we're ahead of the curve in addressing this issue. And having worked in safety and within HRA, we often have said the rules are written in blood. And so often it's been a response to somebody famous dying, Ayrton Senna or Dale Earnhardt Sr., and then all of a sudden there's a scramble to do something about it, and gosh darn, we got to do it overnight. In this case, we are fortunate with, like I said, Formula E running 10 years now with no problems, and minimal problems we've seen from our experiences here. So we have to take advantage of that now and work on this and hopefully help the people here
Eric,
make that transition.
Final thought from you, Eric.
Yeah, it's a funny position to be on the leading edge of the safety discussion about this, because I mean, you know, with the work I've been doing with Don, we look at the heyday of Formula One and where death was just kind of a thing. Like, you know, the Formula One lost 2 drivers this year, and you know, people just said, it's the cost of racing, it's dangerous. But you know, over 30, 40, 50 years, we learned it's like, well, no, we can actually make it safer. I think we're there with EVs. Street cars, Lucids, Teslas, Rivians, the plug-in hybrids from all the various manufacturers, they're safe. I think the thing that we need to watch out for is conversions and people that have found clever ways of getting around some of these safety interlocks of those street cars, because I'm seeing them on YouTube. People with more clickbaity headlines. It's like, oh, I was able to make this Tesla Plaid give me an extra 500 horsepower because I bypassed this interlock or something like that. So that's the thing that makes me nervous, is people that are smart enough that they know how to reverse engineer these cars and make them do things that the factory doesn't want them to do, but they don't understand the hazard of what it is they're actually bypassing.
David, take us home.
Funny how history repeats itself, right?
Oh.
Well, thank you for letting me be a part of these things all these many, many years. And I'll be a consultant now in case anybody's interested. And there's a lot of money to be made for your racetrack, your venue, using and embracing this obvious and unavoidable and a process that's going to happen. They're on the highway. They're going to be on your track. I'm excited about change. I'm excited about what it will bring and the differences and the new people and all of the rest. I'm always excited when people who build race cars get creative. Yes, they do bad things, and then groups like the SCCA and others will legislate and adjudicate and come up with solutions. So we have a great, big, beautiful, bright future ahead of us in motorsports on all levels: circle, drag, oval, road track, everything. So it's going to be fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome very much. What did we learn from this panel? Lots of myths about the dangers of EVs. Learn the facts, and hacks our racers might try will usually be the culprit behind anything really bad that happens. But hey, that's kind of the same in any form of racing. Be prepared for the worst case, like anything in racing. But there's a huge market with EVs that you will want to go after. And while there are fewer ways to break an EV, in the rare, very rare breaks could be catastrophic, just be prepared. Give these folks a good round of applause. All right, we're a little bit late getting you to the morning break presented by Trackside Systems, where you had breakfast before. That's where we'll go. And be back here about 11:05. Bring your stuff in with you.